As you may be aware, I recently upgraded my camera for the first time in forever. I was using a 10-year-old camera up until this year for my daily driver, and we upgraded it. And I've had a lot of questions on this, and I think for someone who's used a camera for so long that was so old, at you shooting worldwide campaigns with it, the questions are warranted. And the main question is why? Why did you do it? What was your camera no longer doing that it did for so long? And let's talk about the specs that I looked at in this new camera that made me buy it. Let's start off with what the original was. It was a 5DS. I had loads of them. I had 5 of them at one point. A 5DS and a 5DSR. Loads of those cameras. 50 megapixels, 14-bit color RAWs. Very good camera. Great camera for the price. Probably one of the best cameras you can get for the price, in terms of what it can do. I shot the Kenview, which is Johnson & Johnson's worldwide campaign with it. And I shot the Papa John's worldwide campaign with it. And I think everything else we use the Phase 1 for. But that's what we use. We rent the Phase 1. I don't own Phase 1s. They're a bit pricey. They're a lot pricey, but great bit of kit. And I upgraded to a Fuji GFX 100S, which is a bit of a mouthful, which is a kind of medium format. It's like the crop sensor of medium format. It's bigger than 35mm. It's smaller than a 645. But it's a nice camera, really nice camera. And I upgraded for a couple of reasons. One was that I was no longer really doing jobs using the 5DSR. The level of jobs I was getting all required medium format, not Fuji medium format. It was very rare that we'd use the 5DS for a shoot. We just use them for test shoots and for very small jobs that we pick up here and there, sort of like stuff, the little bits you do in between the big jobs. And that's great, but they were getting on a bit. They were all hitting the 150,000 shutter mark. Some were hitting their 400,000 shutter mark. And I'd had them for a long time. So the reasons for the upgrade were several. But first and foremost was I was bored. I'd been using the same camera for a decade. And before that, I used a 5D Mark II. And that's my camera life. I had a 5D Mark I for a little bit before that. But 5D. I'd only ever used a Canon 5D. And they're good. They're great. There's nothing wrong with them. Don't feel like you have to go and change it now if you're using one. They're great bits of kit. All of them. Every single one. Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, and S and SR. All great cameras. But I'd had enough. I was bored. And I no longer needed backups because the level of work I was doing didn't require my own kit. So I thought, I'm going to have one camera and one camera only. One camera to rule them all. Couldn't afford to buy a Phase because I'd still be renting them on set anyway, and even if I rented to myself, it devalues quicker than the rental would come in for the number of jobs I do a year. Boring stuff, but relevant. So I bought a Fuji. It's medium format, it's a new camera system, it's got 16-bit color, it's got 100 megapixels, very good stuff. And I only needed one of them. So I sold all of my 5DSs that I had left. I think I'd got 3 of them left. And what I got for those, paid for the Fuji without any money having to come out of anywhere else. So basically, I swapped 3 Canons for 1 Fuji. If I was still a jobbing photographer, like when I bought these Canons 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done this because I need a backup camera. I don't need a backup camera. The most stressful thing this Fuji will do is a test shoot. It's very unlikely it'll be on a job, and if it is, we'll rent backup cameras. It's just my camera. It's my camera for the studio, because the way that commercial photography works is you tend to rent the kit in for jobs. So I've got a 100 megapixels camera. I'm using it this week actually for a test shoot, and we'll do it for test shoots and for small jobs. The specs that made me choose this camera are as follows, and this is coming from a still life photographer. There's a lot of specs I don't know about. For example, let me tell you what I couldn't say off the top of my head. I don't know how many memory card slots it has. I don't know what its autofocus is. I don't know whether it has body stabilization or lens stabilization. I don't know how that works. None of those things I know. But here's the things I do know. Number one, you can phantom power it from a V-Lock battery or V-mount battery. That's very important because I don't want to be changing batteries in the middle of some sort of big composite. Number two, it's 100 megapixels. Very important. Not because I'm going to print it big, but when you're editing and you're cutting out and masking each item individually to do your post-production, it makes it easier. Number three, it's got 16-bit color. Often on my test shoots, when we're editing them afterwards, the color grading is a nightmare on Canon for what I do, because we often shoot red on red on red or blue on blue on blue, and it doesn't have enough blues or enough reds. And you get these horrible like crunching of the colors, and it just goes, the computer says no. That's very nice to have. There's also like a density to the raw file, which Canon doesn't have. Canon's like a thin negative. Fuji's like a thick negative for those in the film world who think like that. It's like a thick negative. It's nice. That's it. That's the entire rationale. Thick negatives, 100 megapixels, phantom battery. Didn't cost me any money. I just swapped out old cameras for this one here. Now, what happens on a test shoot? I hear you saying, if your camera goes down, I'll ask one of my mates to borrow theirs. Doesn't matter. I use a Nikon, a Fuji, Canon, doesn't matter. Just swap it out. It's a test shoot, doesn't matter. What does it matter? If it's a really important test shoot and I've invested a lot of money into it, I'll rent a second one for £100 for the day. You know, it's not that big a deal. If I was doing a job with it, yeah, I'd rent a backup body. Or if I start doing a lot of jobs with it, and it might be the case that I go, do you know what? I like this camera so much. Phase 1 can do one. I'm going to shoot on Fuji, and in which case I'll buy a second body as a backup, identical, another Fuji 100S, because I need matching sensors on commercial jobs. You know, I'd buy another one. That wouldn't be a problem at all. There's nothing stopping me from doing that apart from the fact that I don't think I'm going to use it on commercial jobs. I don't know, but I don't think. You know, if I do find that, yes, I love it so much that every ad campaign I'm going to shoot on a Fuji, you'll see me buy a second body. But, you know, for a fun camera, not walk around camera, it's on a modest stand, but you get what I mean. It's my daily driver. It's what we're going to use for the YouTube videos. It's what we're going to use for the test shoots. And, you know, that's it. And that's the reason. That's the specs. That's what I looked for in a camera. And it might be very different for you what you look for in a camera. You might be a wedding photographer and you need those dual card memory slots. You need an autofocus point everywhere that can track someone's eyes and follow it around. You might need all of that stuff. I just need a big sensor with a lot of colors and, you know, it being free, which is nice. See you soon. Bye-bye.